New dealership inventory is stacking up, and there really is no other way around this. Which also proves that despite what automakers and dealerships want us to believe, the car market is absolutely returning to normal, and yet prices have not. And so in this video, I'm going to be outlining the proof as to why this absolutely should not be the case based off of historical new car inventory data. I'm also going to be talking about how inventory is trending for each individual brands and which brands you should be avoiding while which ones you may be able to get a steep discount with. Now, before we dive into that really quickly, I want to remind you that my course, the Car Sharing Masterclass, is currently on sale from May 20th to May 27th for Memorial Day. And if you use the code MemorialDay150, you can get $150 off your purchase. Now, I'll keep this quick, but whenever you sign up for the Car Sharing Masterclass, not only do you gain access to 7 hours of course content, you also gain access to our private Discord group and our monthly private Zoom calls. Not only that, but I am so incredibly confident with the quality of education that you'll receive with the Car Sharing Masterclass that we offer a robust 30-day money-back guarantee, no questions asked, that you can give the course a try at no risk to you. Again, that code is MemorialDay150, and if you want to check it out, you can do so by clicking the link in the description below. You better act fast because the sale ends on May 27th. Late last week, Cox Automotive released new vehicle inventory data for the majority of April and the very beginning of May of 2024. And according to Cox, dealerships as of May 2nd had 2.84 million units available for sale, which equates to an average day supply of 76 days. Now, the magnitude of this level of inventory really can't be overstated, but to really get a picture of how meaningful this inventory number is, let's look at some of the new car inventory from the last few years. So again, this year we had 2.84 million units available, which equates to a 76-day supply. Last year in 2023, according to the same report, cumulative inventory was at 1.9 million units or 54 days. In 2022, inventory was at 1.13 million or 36 days, which is obviously quite a bit lower from where inventory is today. Now, keep in mind that whenever the car market crash occurred, this happened in the summer of 2021. So even though the entire world turned upside down in 2020, and sure, the car market was affected by this too, low production numbers and empty dealership lots, that really didn't start to happen until the summer of 2021. And so in April of 2021, a few months before this car market crash occurred, dealership inventory was at 2.24 million units or a 44-day supply. Now, Cox Automotive did not release inventory data for May of 2020. I wonder why. And so really the only inventory data that we have from the first half of 2020 from Cox Automotive is from February of 2020. And according to this report, there was 3.58 million units available. And it's really interesting because in this report by Cox, they actually explicitly state that at this point in time, the automotive industry was not affected by COVID whatsoever, which is really interesting because while the pandemic officially started in March of 2020, by the time we reached February of 2020, there were definitely concerns brewing about what COVID-19 and the pandemic could be. And so because of the fact that Cox Automotive explicitly states that the pandemic up until this point had not affected the car market whatsoever, looking at the February of 2020 data really gives us a good idea of what pre-pandemic looked like, at least the most recent pre-pandemic data we have. So up on the screen, I have the data showing year after year, and you can see how inventory has grown year after year. And while inventory levels in 2024 aren't quite pre-pandemic levels, they are certainly past pre-market crash levels. And we are quite a bit above where we were at inventory-wise prior to the car market going up in flames and car prices skyrocketing as a result. And the thing that I have a tough time understanding is why the car market as a whole hasn't reflected the same change. When the car market crash began and dealerships began to increase the prices of their cars, there was of course discussions about supply and demand. Oh, supply and demand warrants dealerships to charge above MSRP. Oh, supply and demand warrants dealership add-ons. And you know what? As much as I hate dealership add-ons and above MSRP prices, dealerships and automakers definitely had a point. In 2021 and in 2022, whether we want to admit it or not, dealerships did at least have a bit of footing to justify charging above MSRP pricing because inventory was so historically low. And in many regards, supply and demand back then did justify price increases. But why, after 3 years and after inventory levels have far surpassed pre-2021 crash numbers, why haven't car prices reflected the shift that we have absolutely seen with supply and demand? Because back in 2021, post-pandemic but pre-market crash, there was 2.24 million vehicles in inventory available, and the average vehicle listing price for new cars was $39,633. But today, there is 2.84 million vehicles in inventory available. That's a 26% increase from 2021. And yet, prices are not only not lower than what we saw in 2021, but they're in fact 20% higher than they were in 2021, with the current new car average listing price sitting at $47,433. This is one of my biggest gripes with the automotive industry. Automakers are so incredibly quick to increase their prices whenever they feel like they can justify it, but they are so incredibly slow at lowering them whenever those same justifications are in place. And sure, dealership incentives have improved, but they are still about 2 to 4% lower than where they should be based off of historical inventory levels. With dealership incentives currently sitting at 6.3% of the average vehicle transaction price, when in reality they should be sitting anywhere between 9 and 11% of the average vehicle transaction price. Now, whenever we look at the individual vehicle data and how these different automakers are trending, we're really seeing more of the same that we've seen throughout the better part of 2024 so far. You can see here that Jeep, Ram, Jaguar, and Alfa Romeo all have over 152 days of total supply, more than twice the industry average. Dodge is trailing not too far behind with 151 days of inventory, and Chrysler and Lincoln are behind them with 143 and 144 days. You can really see that the bottom line is Stellantis has an inventory problem. In fact, in Q1 of 2024, Stellantis sold 10% less vehicles this year compared to that same quarter in 2019. And Stellantis and the companies under the Stellantis umbrella have really been underperforming compared to other automakers for the last couple of years, despite the fact that they have higher inventory than every other automaker out there. And even today, there are a ton of Stellantis-related dealerships that are not only having trouble selling their 2024 models, but there are hundreds of 2023 brand new models that are also having trouble being sold, not only across Jeep, but also Dodge, Ram, Fiat, and Alfa Romeo. On top of these Stellantis duds, there are also more brands than ever that have over 100 days of inventory, with Ford, Mazda, Mini, Nissan, Genesis, Mitsubishi, Volvo, Infiniti, and Chrysler all having 100 days or above of inventory, while Toyota, Lexus, and Honda still have by far the lowest supply. Now, what I do find really interesting is that this is a trend that we've been seeing over the last few years with Toyota. They have month after month had the lowest amount of inventory compared to any other automaker out there by far. And while on the surface, it makes it look as though Toyota's having a production problem or they're having a selling problem, you can actually see that this has been a trend with Toyota for a very long time, even before the pandemic began. Here you can see in 2021, pre-market crash, Toyota had only 23 days supply. In 2019, pre-pandemic Toyota was hovering around 50 days supply. The reality is, historically speaking, Toyota has less inventory than nearly every other automaker out there, and that isn't a new thing. It's pretty much always been the case. Which means that sure, paying above MSRP for a Toyota may be more justifiable than, say, paying above MSRP for a Jeep. There still isn't any excuse to pay above MSRP for a car in this current market, even with brands like Toyota or Lexus. Now, Toyota aside, if we compare 2021 to 2024 inventory, you can see that for some automakers, inventory has absolutely recovered and is far greater than it was a few years ago, which is great news, and it really does show us how far the car market has come over the last few years. Because I know that, at least for myself, whenever I look at vehicle prices and vehicle prices alone, I sometimes get discouraged that the car market hasn't recovered as much as we hoped it would. But whenever we look at inventory and days supply, it really does paint the picture that the car market is in fact recovering. Prices just haven't reflected it yet, which I don't know if that should make us feel better or worse. Now, when it comes to the distribution of inventory, according to Cox Automotive, affordable models are the ones with the lowest supply, while more expensive models that cost $50,000 or more have the highest supply, which honestly makes a ton of sense because in recent years, automakers have been getting rid of their more affordable models. Now, there are some silver linings from all of this data that we've gone over in this video. And that is that while dealerships are still charging far too much for their cars, dealership markups are absolutely becoming less and less common. In fact, markups.org, a website that tracks dealership markups that was at one point adding dozens of new cars per week that were being marked up, has been incredibly quiet in recent months, with most recent markup observations being in February of 2024. That's not to say that dealerships aren't marking up their vehicles. That's not true at all, and they are in fact still doing it. But it's absolutely saying that this is less common and less dealerships are marking up cars. And the reality is that if you are someone who's looking to buy a new car and you're looking at getting a below MSRP deal on that vehicle, it is easier than it's been in years in order to accomplish that. Though I would still recommend waiting until June, end of month, end of quarter to make that new car purchase. Now, this is all to say that while I am incredibly happy that the car market is absolutely turning around and dealership markups and shady dealership add-ons is becoming less and less common, the reality is this change is long overdue and it should have happened months, if not a year ago. Because as I've shown throughout this video, there is no reality where current inventory levels are supporting above MSRP pricing of any kind, no matter what dealerships will try to convince you of otherwise. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.